Abbie, it's so lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for jumping on with me. Let's kick off. No, that's okay. Let's kick off by talking about the Trauma Dump Tour, which is coming to Newcastle on the 17th of November. I want to know, is it possible for people out there who may not listen to It's a Lot regularly, are they still going to be able to have a good time as they come along?
Oh, yes, because it isn't a live podcast. So it's nothing to do with my podcast at all. It's a stand-up show, a standalone stand-up live show. So it's like 3 stories about my life. You don't have to know. I mean, if you know things about me, you might find some jokes funnier, but you don't have to understand the show or find it funny, if that makes sense. But there are some jokes in there or things that are like ironic or, you know, a kind of a motif, like there's a back motif in one of the small jokes that I make, you know, things like that are funnier if you know my history, you know, hating anti-vaxxers. But other than that, it's a completely standalone show. So this is what's been hard to communicate to everyone. So I'm really glad you asked. So thank you for this question, because it's been really hard to communicate to everyone that it is a stand-up show. It's not a live podcast recording. So yeah, it's very different to everything else that I do.
Yeah, that's incredible. When did you first get into stand-up?
Well, I just did the show. I wrote the show, and it turned out to be a stand-up show.
Wow.
A lot of the things I do, I just do them, and then I go, oh, I guess it's a stand-up show then, you know, because I had these stories to tell, and it's said I've got this PowerPoint behind me. It's very silly. It's very fun, and when I did it for the first time, I was like, oh, that's actually just stand-up. That isn't like anything else. So yeah, I just kind of, I think if it was going to be classified as anything, it would be stand-up. Just that I haven't done. I'm sure stand-up comedians would be raging if I said that, because I haven't done the Comedy Store for $5. But you know, it's still a stand-up show.
Well, I mean, you're still making people laugh, so that's like the whole point, right?
Yeah, and it's like, if it's not that, then what is it? Because it's not a theatre show. It's not a play. It's not a live podcast recording. It's jokes on stage being told while I'm standing up. So there we go.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, not to confuse this show with the podcast, but I do have a podcast question for you.
Go for it.
You've had some absolutely iconic guests on lately, including Missy Higgins, Amy Taylor, Grace Tame. I would love to know, if you could ask anyone to be on your show as a guest, who would you invite and why?
Oh my God. I mean, the thing is, my dream guests were Dan Savage and Esther Perel. Do you know them?
I actually don't, no.
Okay, so Dan Savage is a sex advice columnist, but he's been doing it for 30 years. But he's got this podcast called Savage Lovecast. And it was one of the first podcasts I ever listened to. I've listened religiously since I was like 18. And so it's a huge reason why I think about sex and relationships the way that I do. And it's a huge reason why a lot of the time on the podcast, I reference things that he says and will forget to clarify that it's Dan, because to me it's like a vocabulary, you know, it's like he's so incredible. So I got him on like a year ago. I was sobbed when I found out, because he's just an idol of mine. And then Esther Perel is I feel like everyone should listen to Esther Perel. She is a therapist. She speaks like 7 languages or something. She's like one of the most intelligent people in the fucking world. She has a podcast called Where Should We Begin? And similar thing, I've listened to her since that podcast started, because I guess I got suggested it from the Dan Savage stuff. She was on Dan Savage, vice versa. And she is just an incredible therapist. So I love her stuff. So I got her on as well. They were kind of my 2 dream guests, and I got them on. But I feel like I would love to have, I mean, this is deranged, but like, I would love to have Miley Cyrus on, or Kamala Harris. I mean, it's like, obviously we're shooting for the stars. But again, I actually think that the how much Dan and Esther mean to me, and, you know, my parasocial relationships with them, and how much they've impacted my way of thinking and my language, like, they were just, nothing can come close to those 2. But they're kind of a niche thing that either people are like, yes, I know them both, I'm obsessed, or they're like, who the fuck are you talking about? So, go and have a listen after this if you're into like sex advice or therapy or relationship, like, because she does these